You can hear. Thanks. Good. Yeah, I'm still learning how to set all this up. So anyway, Michael Donnelly, welcome. I will be nice. I had my little spit the last live. I never planned to. I'm just fucking pissed off. I am going to stop swearing. It's not because I need to stop swearing. I have to stop swearing. Just filled with rage and anger. Listen, we're going to talk Fuentes, but he's talking halakhic law. I just want to give an example of a psychological warfare. I want to deeply explain how it works. Deeply. For many of you, you've heard me explain it before, of course, the great Adam Curtis, but we're really going to go deep. To get past, it's hard, a noob, to see someone's like, the volume is a little low. Okay, let's get that up. It's pretty high. I'm getting into dangerous territory. So I think you're going to have to check your own, because I'm right up there at the red level. Can anyone else please? Yeah, try your device, Antonio. Okay, that's good. Thanks for letting me know. Always, we got to do the ritual. Can you hear me? Can you see me in the year 2025? But it's amazing, we're so used to this, but 15 years ago, none of this existed. Who remembers dial-up? Who remembers ADSL when it was 56 kilobits and we're over at Jesse's house and he's downloading movies? Took him like a week to get 3 movies and it was the most exciting time ever. Volume is fine. Okay, better fiber. That's great. That's good. 18.6 baud modem. Oh, the days. And then someone would pick up the damn phone. Campbelltown Hospital, Sydney, in here for a trifecta of pneumonia plus gastroenteritis plus influenza. Really? They're actually doing a decent job of speaking about you to some of the finely tuned nurses here. I love that you were an RN who's kicking Israel's ass. Yeah, it is that time, isn't it, Philippe? So, is Campbelltown public? Yeah, I've lost a lot of touch with a lot of nurse friends since COVID, and yeah. First internet, Doom, we just sat there all day playing Doom. Ooh, 14.4K high-speed modem. I feel so privileged to have been that Gen X. I really do, to really appreciate, when this was, you could never even imagine that. You couldn't imagine that. I remember the first time I saw an Apple iPhone, it was an English backpacker in a backpackers in Perth, 2008, when no one could get accommodation. I had to live in a freaking backpackers. Those were the days, my friend. Who remembers the VIC-20? Duncan Frost, I remember it well. I stole all my mother's 50-cent coin collection to play Space Invaders. And then Duncan Frost got a VIC-20, and it was year 8, junior high school. Then a Commodore 64. The Commodore 64. There's a great documentary about the whole history of the Commodore. It's amazing. The whole history of that, the SID chip. Then I had an Amiga 500. Then I had a 386DX33. Then I got a 486DX33. I couldn't afford the 66 gigahertz. Then out came the Pentium 100 gigahertz. Oh my God. And then I went years without a computer. Years and years. Yeah, Amiga 3000. Whoa. Load Runner for the Commodore 64. Yeah, I remember, what was my fave? Bruce Lee, the Kung Fu game. Super Nintendo. Friend had a good old Atari 2600. Yeah, Commodore 64. Basic code, writing in basic code to make a red ball bounce around the screen. Those were the days. Pong, I remember when my parents brought that home with the paddle sticks. I was watching a war movie and I didn't really care. I wanted to watch the war movie, but we stared in wonder. Sinclair 128, yeah, it was kind of Atari 2600, Sinclair 128 and Commodore. Yeah, those were the days. And Amiga killed PCs, It should have been the world's #1 computer and they just, I don't even know what happened. They just really messed it up, big time. DOSBox. I remember playing Falcon. Do you remember fighting Falcon? It was on like 16 discs, 3.5-inch floppies. You still have your Atari 2600. Jeez, whoa. There was a Jewish guy, grumpiest bastard ever, but he had the biggest collection in a shop of old Commodore 64s, old computers. We used to just go in there and just, it was like a walk down memory lane. Walk down memory lane. Well, it was when it was so exciting. It was so exciting. Those were the days, my friend. We thought they'd never, we were so innocent. Have an Atari thumb. They were glory days. Asteroid, the SID chip. Yeah, the Amiga. God. I had the rudder pedals and the throttle control, Apache Longbow. Do you remember Apache Longbow? There was when graphics cards first came out. Texas AMD, no, it wasn't AMD then, it was the other name. GameCube, oh my God. GameCube, yeah. Those are the days. I love my flight simulators. Anyway, let's hop in. The memory cards. Oh, PS2, yeah. Yeah. Television, jeez. Yeah, I do feel sorry for the current generation because just not having that was, thank God we missed it. That's all I can say. Thank God we missed it. All right, let's start. Let's start with a bit of, actually, we're going to start with something else. I don't know if you know, but the doctor who treated Charlie Kirk, allegedly, in the hospital, has said, and here we go, we're gonna listen to this now, has said that Charlie Kirk stopped that 30-06, that 308 round, stopped it dead. His bones were so dense, I couldn't believe it. I said, I don't believe this. And my God, he actually said it. Watch this.
It was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It's likely would have killed those standing behind him too. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin.
Oh my goodness. Another magic bullet, ladies and gentlemen, another magic bullet. Look, I kid you not, they're actually pushing that. And you know, you just sit there in stunned disbelief and go, really? De veras? De veras? Really? It's like, now we need to talk about this. Let's have a little brief chat. A little brief chat. We got to watch a bit of Adam Curtis. Let's watch. They're not even trying. Look, do you remember Muhammad Atta? They found his passport in the rubble. Do you remember they went and found their car at the airport, Logan Airport? And in there was like, how to fly a Boeing 767. It was just all in the boot of the car, just laid out, ready. No one's even trying. And you think to yourself, number one, I don't believe these are large operations. These are very small operations. Number two, they want us to know because there's actually no risk. Number one, well, Adam Curtis, let's remember this.
The underlying aim, Surkov said, was not to win the war, but to use the conflict to create a constant state of destabilized perception in order to manage and control.
We need to just remember this all the time. Remember I said it's going to be like this? Now, even then, it was double that. And even I was like, whoa, this is like, whoa. But it has its effect. It destabilizes perception. And if you are a politically astute person, it's demoralizing. You think, oh, come on, try harder. I truly believe this, that they are doing this because they know they're more astute observers. We switch off. It's just like, oh, I can't stand this any longer. I just can't stand it. We need to remember, of course, the Adam Curtis said that they make up different groups, and we're going to watch 4 minutes of Adam Curtis again. I think it's important, where he says they were running all sides. The story is clearly absurd. It gets back to when I first saw it. I thought, you know, you got to be careful with the sound from a mobile phone because they suppress the sound a bit. Like GoPros and DJI when they're on like combat in Ukraine, and it's very, you know, they don't sound like that. Even though a lot of them have got suppressors on their AKs, they don't sound like that. They're loud. They're still freaking loud as hell. But the microphone's suppressing the sound. So when I first heard it, it was, well, it's a handgun, obviously, like a small frame 22 or 32. I reckon it was a small frame 32. Then when the story came out, I just assumed it must be real to some degree, and I tried to fit it into my basic experience of firearms when I was younger. And, you know, I thought, well, he must have had a plate in because he had a vest. It was a vest with a carrier plate. You can see it. You can actually see it, but it didn't have a carrier plate in. And then they finally come out. He absolutely had no ceramic plate in, because people thought, well, it must have bounced off the top and ricocheted. That makes sense. But the other likely thing is it went in above his ear, which rings a little bit true. It does ring a little bit true. Somewhere up here, gone through his ear canal. See, there's not a lot of blood there. It's not a lot of blood. And down through his oral cavity. That alone would be shocking. And it's ripped his wires that are in his earpiece. That's what's pulled his shirt up. And then it's gone down into his throat and severed his carotid. Not his well, it might have severed his jugular as well, but it was clearly his well, actually it was both. His carotid and his jugular. I mean, he was dead. He would have bled out in literally 10 seconds. He would have lost half a litre, 3/4 of a litre in blood in 10 seconds. I've seen those bleed. I've seen carotids with just hairline after a cabbage, CABG, a coronary artery bypass graft. I used to look after them all the time in ICUs. And they bleed just with a tiny, where the sutures haven't quite taken properly. And they swell. You got to watch them like a hawk. And then boom, they're straight into emergency surgery, you know, to get this fixed. And these are just very small. So when that goes, you're done, you're finished. He's dead. I mean, as soon as I saw it, he's dead. He's clearly dead. And that could work. Regardless, we're all talking about it. We're expending a lot of energy on it. But there's other things to talk about. And I got to give Candace Owens credit to whoever's feeding her the info. When yesterday she talked, I was disappointed. I thought, why won't they talk about Intel and Microsoft? But I actually thought to myself, you know what? That's actually more profound when she talked about valves. That's why I kept saying, I don't know how to make it sexy. I wish I could hang some boobies out. I don't know what to do to make it sexy, but valves, industrial controller chips. You remember Chris Domas, where he said, via controller chip. It's an industrial chip, but it's based on the x86 architecture. So it's the same basic architecture as AMD and Intel. Now, they used that chip specifically because they didn't want to go direct to Intel or AMD and alarm everyone, but also he was making the point. These things are used all through the system, all these varying industrial controller chips. Probably is wrong. And I just thought, wow, the fact that she decided to talk about that, she's clearly got someone in her, you know, Catholic Mason ear. I mean, I just prefer she said she was a Mason and some sort of evangelical universalist or something. I just prefer that. The absurdity is you do not have to be a hardcore Catholic to understand the basics of Catholicism. Whatever you think of the Catholics and whatnot, whatever you think of them, all right? I know some fantastic Catholic people. One of them's Opus Dei, hardcore. I was invited up and I said, no, that's not my thing, dude. And you know me, I don't go to church at all. I fucking hate the church. But it was through the example of a lot of Catholics, some of them who, like me, went to the Orthodox and realized, my God, the Russian Orthodox is just as freaking corrupt as everywhere else, which I was going to be a monastic. Anyways, you don't have to be an expert in theology to understand. You can't be a Catholic Mason. There is no such thing. You can't use the two words in the same sentence. Evangelical type, waspy Mason, universalist type, yeah, you could. I just prefer that, but it really bugs me. It's like, oh, come on. Come on now. Are Opus Dei calling themselves Catholic Masons now? I mean, where would the FBI be without all the Mormons, the LDSs, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Catholics? Where would they be? So anyway, why don't I come and have a look down here what you're all saying? The Charlie Scribb incident, yeah. Oh, sorry, I got lost in that memory lane of Commodore 64s and VIC-20s. That was a day where if a man had 8 megabytes of RAM, not 8 gigabytes, 8 megabytes. I mean, phew, my friend had it and he had all on his word processor, Microsoft Word, he had all the fonts. We were in amazement. Then someone got 16 megabytes of RAM. We were like, wow. Mehdi Ismail, I still remember he was from Pakistan. Mehdi Ismail, rich kid from Pakistan. And we were like, God, you've got 8 megabytes of RAM. Yeah, man of steel. Actually, I don't mind that guy. He's a Green Beret. They're usually a little bit smarter, the Green Berets, because they've got to deal with people. They usually got to learn a language, not that any of them do, but lucky for Google Translate. And they're usually a little smarter. But anyway, 80s spinach. It was a CI dissolving bullet. I mean, The reason they can get away with it is because we're just going to laugh about it and sell coffee mugs and t-shirts. That's why they know. It's not an accident. They love this. This is going to get everybody talking, and Adam Curtis will explain it all to us. Mystical lead. There's got to be a magic bullet. Look, in 1967, they did a poll after the Warren Commission came out on Kennedy. And it was something like 57% of Americans polled said they didn't believe the report. They didn't believe it. That was back in 1967. I remember the Zogby poll in 2005. They had a Zogby poll where they polled New Yorkers and said, do you believe 19 Arab hijackers did 9/11 and the government didn't know? Did the government know, or something like that? 51% the government must have known. 51%, 2005. Last Zogby poll they ever did on the subject. Zogby's like one of the premier pollsters. Not that anyone believes polls anymore, but anyway. So, they know we can just keep doing this and it doesn't matter. They really know that. I was lucky that I came to social networking science early. I became very fascinated by it. You know where I found it? I was in Albany Regional Prison, maximum security, and I got a magazine in, and you could buy magazines, and I was so excited, PC World magazine. I had to fight off all the bastards trying to come to my cell to borrow the magazine. And they had all this stuff about social networking science and how they could go on tweets when Twitter was just out, and they could look for they could predict 97% accuracy the next epidemic of flu, where it was spreading, because they would look for the word sick. I'm sick, I have the flu, and they had to differentiate. These were undergraduates doing this with 97% accuracy. And they had to look for things like fully sick, bro. They had to differentiate between those tweets. And that was 2012. That's why I became fascinated and started watching everything I could. This is the key. So if they can understand you with 8 data points for like the last 70 years, they can understand the average for who they vote, age, sometimes when they'll die, roughly within 10 to 15 years, with 8 data points. The average person has 3,000. The average social media user has 3,000 data points. Not 8, 3,000. High level users, and they had like 33,000. I thought, oh, come on, don't say 33,000. But it was like in 10 times as much. Like a certain 30% of the population in Gen Z type had these massive data points. They can predict the future. That's why they don't care. And it can be a private, it's not the NSA or the Mossad or MI6. It's private. These are private groups of private people. And I say what I said will hold up. My thesis that I gave you holds up. It is the most likely scenario. Whether you believe, look, I just want to clarify, I'm not saying I don't believe Charlie Kirk isn't dead and they could stage stuff. Anything's possible. But what's the most likely? And the most likely is they freaking killed him up close with a handgun of some description. That's the most likely. Most of the numbskulls can't figure out the site. Oh, by the way, Lee's right now at the Charlie Kirk thing in Arizona, and he just cornered Matt Gaetz with his new flyers, and I'll show you Lee's new flyers. Like just now, he just got back to me. And Matt Gaetz said, this isn't the time for that. And marched on. I can kind of understand, but I told Lee, if you get him again, Lee, and Lee's like a bull terrier, like a, what do you call him, a Jack Russell down a rat hole, tell him, in the memory of Charlie Kirk, you're saying there's no time for treason, no time to discuss treason. That's not the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Anyway, look, I do feel bad. You should have heard what I really first said about it. I said, die, you mongrel dog. You just worked out Gaza, did you? But, after watching him, I could see he's actually a very reasonable, nice person, and I genuinely believe he didn't know a lot. And when he did, he was not happy. He actually seemed like a nice person. I felt a bit bad. But the world is filled with nice people. Mel Gibson's a really nice person. I know people that know Mel Gibson from his property in Melbourne and Victoria. And he's a nice person. But he's still a lying piece of shit coke addict who's always marrying and effing a Russian-Israeli whores with his Israeli Defense Force bodyguard. So I'm sorry. Nice guy. I keep hearing, Ram's actually a nice guy. Sorry, Ari's a nice guy. Ram's the arsehole. Ari's nicer than Ram Emanuel. Ari's actually a very nice person. It's like, what is this? He's a very nice person. Lots of very nice people. I bet you a lot of people said, Henry Kissinger around the table, he's a very engaging, very nice person. I guarantee you lots of people. Let's get away from this they're a nice person stuff, can we? Let's look at their fruits. Magic passports, we were smoking for 6 weeks, yeah. I used to hunt with 30-06, no ways, bones of steel. I mean, it's not even up for debate. I mean, it's just silly. You don't have to be an avid hunter. If you shot a few rounds, you know what those are. Even a 5.56 can do some serious freaking damage. From 150 yards, I mean, that round, you know, you've got, your 308 type round, man, it's traveling at what? 2,500 feet per second, 800 meters per second. That heavy, that density of the bullet, the shock wave behind it, man, it's still moving at 500 yards, moving before it drops off. And a 5.56, that thing starts tumbling around inside. There's some weird stuff 5.56 rounds do, the 2.23s. But, you know, they're not even trying. I mean, grandma might not work. Well, grandma probably could work it out in the US, but anyway, it's like, I don't even want to comment on it. It's so ridiculous. But that narrative would work for a lot of Charlie's crowd. It would work with them because they want to believe. But no, as we know. Antonio, hypernormalization is a must watch. I mean, I adore Adam Curtis. He's on my wall with Bill Cooper. Well, Jesus at the top, of course. He's right up there, but I didn't like his last one. He was poo-pooing conspiracies too much. I understood what he was trying to do in that documentary series. He was trying to say all this conspiracy, like he'd be having a go at this now. Oh, the conspiracy. But we're not fighting the system, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Jim Fetzer has held Jim. I did an interview with Jim when I got back from Iran on Sandy Hook, but Sandy Hook's a classic. I believe it was the first quasi fake operation with actual dead kids. I honestly believe that they did things to make it look fake while there was actually a mass shooting. Because it messed with my head so much I didn't want to look at it anymore. So I can't work this out. It's so obviously a false flag, and then at the same time there's clearly dead kids. I knew people I trusted that knew the family. Said, Brendon, don't fall for this one. They really are dead kids. See, the thing is, Alex Jones was busted not because he was speaking the truth. It's because he was lying. He knew kids were dead, and he said openly to, not Owen Schroyer, what's his name, the English twat, that we get good ratings from it. That's why he went to court. And then he refused to hand over all the stuff, so he got a summary judgment. There was no mystery that he was not afforded. He was afforded everything he needed. But did you notice they never really explained it? But anyway, they didn't go after his prostitute wife, Erica Wolf. I'm going to do a video on that. Well, Jim Fetzer would call it as fake. Jim is a genius, obviously, but he's also off his head. Sorry. He's obviously, who keeps emailing me their little spat? I'm sorry, it's all in spam. Please don't involve me. I don't care. Jim Fetz is so clever, though. He doesn't want to talk about critical infrastructure, so I'm sorry. Look. The Charlie Scribbins, 9/11 destroyed the Fourth Amendment. This will take down the First and Return. Nah, you're never going to take away free speech. I promise you, I'm an expert on this, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. It's not, you can't take away free speech. And what's more, I can't tell you enough how it's so easy to avoid free speech laws. Just say incitement laws, race hatred laws. It's so easy. Just speak politely and respectfully. And that's literally all you have to do. I'm being serious. They don't want to take you. All you have to do is say my name. Just say, I don't know, I hate the Jews, kill all the Jews, and then get arrested. Say, now let's talk about Israeli intelligence activity. No, that's it. That'll be the end of the trial. All right. So just stop it. It's just another bullshit. The United States is rock solid. You cannot go away for racial hatred. There's no such thing. Hate speech will never come in. Never. They already have things they can do. It's called incitement. It's called threats to kill. There's 1,000,001 ways, all right? It's just to keep it out there and keep the drama going. All right, they want Jews in Israel, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. Antonio, exactly, Marina. Peace to you, Brennan. Louis the Fifth. It's not Louis from Iraq, is it? Candace message is simple. Use your MasterCard. Yeah. Well, she's learning from the best military intelligence. As Bergie said, he went to the studios for that great thing he did with Alex Jones after Millie Weaver was arrested. And he said all the equipment is straight out of the military studios they have on the military base. Every single piece of equipment is straight out of the same supplier. I love Bergie. He looks like a homeless man now, but whatever. He's always got a place in my heart. Up and catch up with him one day. Killgates used to say 786 RAM was enough. Oh no. Uh-oh. 10% battery remaining in my mic. I forgot to charge it. Oh, well, we can always go to this. That's a bit unfortunate. Mentioned Susie Wells as an Israeli first. You don't say, I didn't see that, but yes. Hold on. Well, I'm an Israeli firster, a secular Israeli firster with a giant US Marine Corps base right there. Yes, so call me a Zionist, a Marine Corps Zionist. Kilgate used to say, yeah, I know, RAM was enough. It's like, how did they ever run that company? And look at that clown Barmer, the coked up Barmer, and the real guy dies. What's his name? The real guy ends up dying of cancer. Oh, I think it was pancreatic cancer too, a bit like good old Steve Jobs. My nephew's grandfather, head of forensic accounting squad, trying to track down the missing 2.8 million under Dov Zakon. Actually, it was 2.8 trillion. The plane that was a missile on 9/11 investigation over allegedly the only day of work he ever missed was 9/11. I'm fond of repeating this little known caveat. Yeah, look, I know. I mean, even it was talked about. I mean, Rumsfeld was the one who demanded the investigation on September the 10th, 2001. And the next day, we know what happened. Will Smith, Brendon, I can't tell you how I first encountered you in late 2018, but I've been following you ever since. God bless you and your impressive body of work. Thoughts on Fuentes' recent pivots toward defending Israel? You'll have to tell me more, Will Smith. Didn't Israel strike 6 Middle East? And yeah, and I do appreciate you, and you know what? I'm going to be more appreciative. I'm getting over it, all right? It's been a very hard 7 months. A lot of it's just money. Like if I know everyone would like $180,000 in the bank, but remember, I don't have a house. I have nothing. Do I look stupid? All right, I'm a smart guy. My friends have 3 investment properties and 4 cars, and I have fucking nothing. All right, they took everything away. Would I trade it? No, I had to go through this. I was meant to go through this, but I do appreciate your support, and you'll see me over the coming months a little bit different. I will calm down. I'll just treat it as I'm a monastic, and this is life. Put my fate in the hands of God and take it a day at a time. But I just need to, because also astrologically, my Moon-Pluto conjunction 8th house is being triggered by this, particularly today. This is a big day, and I noticed this eclipse today, which is a big thing for me personally. I definitely feel calmer. It's like something's clicked a bit. So yeah, tell me more, Will Smith, about Fuentes' recent pivot. Didn't Israel strike 6 Middle East countries during the Charlie Squib thing? These people are bold. Yeah, yes and no. Then they hacked European systems, and they're blaming it on Russia. Well, for once, I will defend Israel. I don't believe Israel did this. Look, who benefits? Do you seriously think Israel said, yes, we shall kill Charlie Kirk? There will be no backlash at all. I mean, of course, who's benefiting? It's about bringing pressure on Bibi, because the clowns that have criminal negligence on their heads, and I mean, that's the best you can look at them. If not, they are out and out treasonous. They have a lot to answer for, and they can't move. They can't just take over this network. They can't just kill them or get rid of them because they've got too much dirt on them. So these are the games that are played. Conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hate, whereas media's response to non-believers of Warren Commission, yeah. Look, I remember when JFK came out, Oliver Stone, it was so big. That's how I kind of got into it, because when Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated in 1995, I'd not long watched the JFK, and I saw the immediate, it was the same. It's like the same modus operandi, the same bullshit, the same patsy, the same everything. And even said, they were screaming, the crowd, Bibi is a murderer, in English, Bibi is a murderer. Everybody knew, but there he is still. Cordiality doesn't equal morality, correct, Antonio? Yes. 20 logical fallacies to augment to argumentation. Yeah. Kurt Freedom. Yep, Gavin Newsom was said to be a very nice and engaging and charming individual, and I have no doubt he is. Look, that's why I'll tolerate Bannon. Bannon's an old drunk, but I can't help but love him. The old Irish Catholic drunk. Because he's the only one there that speaks any truth. I was meant to finish my collection of him, where I've got him going, F you, the EU, F Rothschild, F City of London, F the Lord's me, F London. He's going, you London, you're the ones that got all the Russian and Chinese money. The Chinese are up your backsides. But I mean, I'm just going, yeah. But it's more than rhetoric. But will it translate into political? Well, it kind of is. The EU is the enemy with the City of London. Just shot a Cody at 280 yards with a 5.56 and went through several ones. Yeah, when you got things traveling that fast, particularly 5.56, I mean, that's doing 900 meters a second. Here, Mr. Loop. I mean, they had specialist, 5.56 rounds in Iraq they were testing. And they were shooting at people planting bombs on roads. When they sent in the helicopters and stuff, they start running. And the Humvees pulled up and they were playing with these new rounds, and the rounds were entering their buttocks as they run and zipping straight up and coming out through their necks. So the 223 at high velocity is some pretty crazy stuff. Century of the Self is my fave. Yeah, I love all of them, just not quite much the last one, pretty much. Just the style too, for some reason, the music, the style. That and, all watched over by Machines of Loving Grace gives the whole game away. Brilliant. Sid in Las Vegas, Area 22 max for firing Lobo. Nice. Sid in Las Vegas area. It was a money laundering operation. What's that? I think we have a chance of winning this fella. I really do. Well, we have already won, but I've told you, yes. I knew the old Skull and Bones boys, the old George H.W. Bush crowd and their descendants are in charge. Yes. Barely in charge. There's just too much pus on them. They can't move. There's a whole new generation of coming up. The three-letter acronyms have come up. Who do you think's watching over me? I mean, they sent me $2,000 last Christmas. I bought a beautiful 42-inch OLED monitor. I did. I said, thanks for that. For Christmas, I'm going to buy myself a present. Why? They just said, we have adjusted our accounts from my St. George bank account. It was very nice of them. Just don't talk about 9/11, Brendon. Paycheck, or I mean, what are we gonna do with all the surveillance? Are they gonna rip it all down? Are they gonna at least talk about that over the next 10 years? We will begin dismantling this surveillance state, or at least give people the options to opt out in their particular area or something like that. Anyway, the A-team, an ironic corner, Fuentes is just rejecting that Israel played a role in the Kirk assassination. Well, he's probably watching my videos. Look, I'm not joking. We know people in the scene. Fuentes knows who I am. Alex Jones hates my guts and knows me by name, by fucking name, and so does Joe effing Rogan. I know for a fact. Lex Friedman knows who I am. We were the ones that lobbied for Roger to get on their shows. And Roger told me that Lex Friedman said twice, I will get you on Joe Rogan. And I said to Roger, you're not going to get on Joe Rogan. I guarantee you, Joe Rogan knows who I am. It's Ari Emanuel. It's that whole crew. All right, Alex Jones, they won't let you on. I'm telling you now. And Lex Friedman guaranteed him, went on twice, has to get permission to say Roger's name though. Like, nobody goes on the Joe Rogan show and is not allowed to say any names. They have to discuss the subject matter with the producers before they utter a single word. It's that controlled. Yeah, man, we're just sitting there smoking weed. Yeah, really, yeah. With his buddy Ari Emanuel on his $150 million a year. And sure, Roger, if you know Roger's book, Smuggler, which I got published, and I designed the cover, or well, the graphics designer did, but I gave him all the pictures and gave him the idea. And I wrote the intro, re-edited it and everything. And Roger had me in the back to my dear friend Brendon, without whom, this would never have taken place. But that was going to be a 10-part Apple series. And it was almost guaranteed. Then the scriptwriter strike happened. And then Tarrant Egerton out of Kingsman and Blackbird and all the rest was going to play Roger, which I didn't think was a good... I thought what's his name? Bradley Cooper would have been better at it. And this was a serious deal. And Apple got back to, no, we're not doing it now. And I'm telling you, it's related to Roger's... I told Roger and Roger just laughs at me and thinks I'm paranoid. But anyway, he's got a whole bunch of... They're trying to sign him up for life rights and all the rest. Anyway, that's why we value and support you, brother. Thanks, Antonio. Fuentes is just rejecting Israel played a role. Yeah, yes, they all watch. They all watch. I know they watch. We had 2 people in his office. Alex Jones has had a raging methamphetamine, not cocaine, methamphetamine, not Adderall, methamphetamine habit since forever. All right? He drinks vodka by the gallon just to get to sleep. He has serious issues. Now you've seen him coming good because they finally got him back on track. He wanted out. We heard this. He's desperate to get out. He can't bear it. He wants out. You've seen him, he's all happy now with his prostitute wife, handler, all the rest. Anyway, We used to get intimate details about what was going on in that office. Everyone hates Alex Jones. Nobody in the office likes him. Nobody, right? He is an obnoxious piece of stinking garbage. Nobody likes him. Nobody. He has not a single friend anywhere. That's how sad and pathetic he is, bro. I assure you, Alex Jones will live to 120. He's the demons in him. He'll live to 120. But I will still give Alex Jones his due. While Bill Cooper was a little occultic, like I want to use political stuff, and it was difficult to use Bill Cooper at times. But he was the original and best. And you know that how much Alex Jones lied about him, said he was drunk on his show. It was just absolute garbage. And whether Alex Jones was an opportunist or trained from the beginning, probably trained from the beginning. But one thing I liked about Alex Jones was he spent a lot of time on white papers, Agenda 2021, the Compact Smart City program, the UN stuff, how they were sealing off whole sections of the United States, the lies in the books, like the accounts of the states, how they all lied. They all had freaking trillions. It was trillions of dollars in the background. I'll give Alex Jones that. I found him very useful for that. But, you know, we know history. In 2016, 9/11, they come out, Israel did 9/11 with Dr. Steve Pieczenik, and then after that, that was the end of them. Once Trump got in, that was the end of Alex Jones. Any form of basic truth was finished. Let's start a media company, love to. Steve Allen, that's the real guy, Steve Allen of Microsoft. There's a great I wish they'd remake it. It's from the book Fire in the Valley, how it all started between Steve Jobs and good old Bill Gates. And they were just fronts. They were handed the companies. That was handed to them. Like the graphical user interface. I mean, Wozniak was good. I mean, he was brilliant and funny and nice. And there's another nice guy. And then, you know, I heard from a few people that actually he's diddles children. And I was just thinking, oh, God, please, can I like anyone? But, yeah, I don't even repeat stuff like that. I don't. It's too easy just to repeat stuff. But, you know, they hand them. But Xerox got it off DARPA, right, in 72. They had Skype, they had the mouse, they had the literal Skype going back in 72, all that stuff. They were doing demonstrations of it. And then Xerox refined it in the graphical user interface, and then they simply were told to hand it to Steve Jobs. See, it comes out of the Department of Defense, all this stuff, then it gets handed up. They have like a trust fund for trust fund kids. And then they say, okay, you can handle this, Jeff Bezos can handle this. None of these people are geniuses. Most of them are, because real geniuses and that don't like being manipulated like that. They don't like it. I'm gonna switch over now to something else, if you'll excuse me for a second. Big camera up there. All right, let's get back up here. Okay, we've smoothly transferred over. Let me get the screen only, quickly transfer over. How's that? We shall do that. Okay, that's that done. All right, let's get that up there. We'll get back to the camera. Okay. Steve Allen, yeah, Microsoft. So, and they always seem to die. Even I'll give it to Steve Jobs. He refused to take part in the whole NSA thing, and you know, next minute he's got pancreatic cancer. Jack Rubenstein, not Jack Ruby, all that stuff. Steve Bannon on all places, easy listen. War for Eternity. Yeah, I'll look that up. Bannon funded DHI with the German of Knights of Malta, Otto van Husberg, and some people close to the British crown. Yeah, well, you know, wouldn't surprise me. You know, ONI, baby, Office of Naval Intelligence. It's the old British Navy, man. That's the oldest of the intelligence networks, ONI. You never really hear about ONI, do you? You never really hear about it. Anyway. Yeah. Right, let's go to Nick Fuentes on the Hodge twins. And we'll explain what he is. But before we do that, let me get something up. I want to get up this quote. I presume you can see this now. So let me double check. I've got to get another screen. I keep forgetting. Right. This is from the editor of Sharon, the editorial article in official newspaper of the governing Labour Party, Davar, Israel, July 11, 1952. I want you to remember this when you think of, what's his name, Adam Green, when you think of, expel the Jew by 22, what's his name, that other guy that went around. I shall not be ashamed to confess that if I had the power, as I have the will, I would select a score of efficient young men, intelligent, decent, devoted to our ideal and burning with desire to help redeem Jews, and I would send them to the countries where Jews are absorbed in sinful self-satisfaction. The task of these young men would be to disguise themselves as non-gay Jews, Nick Fuentes, as non-Jews, and plague these Jews with anti-Semitic slogans such as bloody Jew, Jews go to Palestine, and similar intimacies. Remember, they did this to the Iraqi Jews, to blew up their synagogues in Iraq to get them to run to Israel. I can vouch that the results in terms of considerable immigration to Israel from these countries would be 10,000 times larger than the results brought by thousands of emissaries who have been for decades preaching to deaf ears. I think that's a pretty profound quote that we should all be considering. Let's now get this up. Where are we? The Hodge twins. This is so contrived, but anyway.
Yeah, twins pod.
I mean, some people don't think they got the power to do it, but I think Hollywood and Kanye brought this up. Jewish people who's in leadership positions have destroyed the black community. Their culture is so fucked up. Yeah. And it's all from the movies, the music. I mean, the black community was not that bad.
You have like the Dead Poets and all that, all the original hip hop, which was about anti-abortion, the breakdown of black communities, no fathers, and then all of a sudden, in comes, good old not MKUltra, what do you call it, COINTELPRO. So they infiltrated, they poured the drugs in, they created the prison industrial complex, they created gangsterism, hip hop, should all be freaking banned. I mean, it's encouraging. I mean, how can you run around encouraging crime? How are you allowed to do that? I mean, I know we want free speech. Well, I guess with education you can stop it, but have a look what it's doing. But anyway.
Before the civil rights, they had their own shit. Like when this country was actually systemically racist, black people didn't look that bad, didn't behave.
I think black
bad.
people was at their best.
Yeah.
It's like since the civil rights movement, it's like everything's been downhill for blacks.
Well, and they were behind that. They were the Jewish people were leading the charge, and I don't think that they ever had black people's best interest in mind, or any of these groups for that matter, because there was an interesting article in The Atlantic a few weeks ago. It said they
don't have any of our best interest in mind.
End of the Jewish Golden Age. Mm-hmm. And it talked about how
including Jews.
The Jewish people 100 years ago were the biggest opponents of the marriage of the Christian religion and the state. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Because if the state is Christian, it would be a little bit exclusionary towards Jews who aren't Christian.
Right.
They were also the biggest advocates of the civil rights movement. Why? Because the more tolerant that America is, the more liberal, the more open it is, safer they are. If it's a country that's all about Europeans and Christians, well, Jews are neither European nor are they Christian. They're not racially or ethnically European.
They're not racially or ethnically European. See, now he's now mouthing Orthodox Judaism. Remember, I went through this in a court case. They play the race because they want to keep Jews. Once a Jew, always a Jew. You can't escape your race. We'll talk about that in a minute. He's mouthing Orthodox Jewish talking points now.
They're not religiously Christian. So they sort of used black civil rights. They used women's suffrage. They used the anti-establishment clause, basically to undermine American civil society, to make it a place that is more hospitable to their own people. And they freely admit this in this article and in other places. And it's a very simple sort of calculation. The more closed America is, the more inhospitable it is to Jewish people. The more open it is, the more multicultural, the more fluid, whatever you want to say, the less religious, the less homogeneous, the more hospitable it is to them and them having power.
Yeah.
But, I think he'd want to explain who them are. So see the generalities. We need to see through this. Do you seriously think someone as smart and articulate as Nick Fuentes can't talk in terms of things like Rothschild, international banking houses, Cecil Rhodes, roundtable groups? This is how you can tell how this is contrived bullshit. A Jew working for Jews. All right, he's a Jew. How do I know that? You just have to take my word for it. He's a Jew working for Jews. All right, or one of their little rent boys. The man who walked around with the guy with the big black dildo as a conservative Catholic. You must understand there's something you need to know. The Israeli Jews especially, who many are Russian, their national sport is humiliating Christians. So putting the most absurd stories up and the most crazy crap, they love it. They really do. It is part of the ritual. So of course they stick up a moron like Nick Fuentes. Of course they stick someone like that up. You're not going to see an articulate, snappy, imagine a Charlie Kirk, but like Nick Fuentes. Could you imagine that? You will never get it. It's always going to be a freak. Always. It's never not a deviant, whack job, drug addict freak. It's never not. And they can't articulate the most basic things. It's like Bannon. Bannon doesn't just occasionally go off about the City of London central bankers. It's all he freaking talks about. If he's on video, it's in my feed or it's on my Google alert and I watch it and I'll do the compilation. That is normal discourse. But they don't want the youth, for some reason, going anywhere near that information. And we'll talk about Candace Owens. See, no one exists outside these people. The issue has just suddenly popped up. It's just, boom, it's appeared out of nowhere. And everyone goes, oh my God, Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes are saving us. As if they just got all this information out of thin air. Whitney Webb too. They don't want to see the roots of where all this has come from. A real person would talk about a Bill Cooper, an Ezra Pounder, Eustace Mullins, a Reverend Ted Pike. They talk about Viktor Ostrovsky, or the most underrated. No, I'm doing a video now on Professor Israel Shahak, who translated the Ode to Genome Plan into English, was professor at Bar-Ilan University, professor of chemistry, and then wrote the book Jewish History, Jewish Religion, The Weight of 3,000 Years. I'm sure someone somewhere is doing something. I'm talking about these more mainstream, who they are propping up. Remember, these whores, these Zionist whores like a Tucker Carlson or a Megyn Kelly had been protecting these whores for 20 freaking years. But suddenly the Johnny-come-latelys are now the heroes. You know, it's just, and it's like this. Where did you get that information? As if the average person has no idea of the people whose blood has been spilled to get this information out there. The history and the connections back, because we stand on the shoulders of giants. This is part of the psychological warfare. So it just appears out of nowhere. The young Turks, here they are before you. Listen to these ones. But the story will always have a twist. Look at Tucker Carlson and 9/11. Oh, the neocons did it. It's straight out of Alex Jones, like circa 2003. Straight out of 2003 election. Imagine. There's your groundbreaking reporting.
I think, I'm all for freedom of speech, but if we don't stand under the same morals, the same guidelines, then people could come and exploit our freedoms and destroy our country. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Let me ask you
So we
this.
better go to a theocracy maybe, or as Milo Yiannopoulos says, you need a crown, a paternalistic, top-down thing because the people are children. No, you made them children. It's all about education.
It's like I could be black and be Muslim.
Mhm.
I could be black and be Christian. What is a Jew? That's not a race, right? Or
Well,
is it?
It is a race. I mean,
It's a race.
they'll quibble about, the point is they are a biologically distinct group in the sense that, black people are black people. Italians are Italian. They have certain traits. Jewish people are a distinct ethnicity. They always say we're not a race, we're a people. Okay. It's a distinction without a difference.
Right.
They are an ethnicity. And by Jewish law,
Ethnicity.
you can only become a Jew. It's passed down matrilineally.
Matrilineally in the mitochondria. Why? Because of the inbreeding. That's why they have a distinct. But that's not Jews. I mean, let's get up, Jews. So let's get up. Let's get up, Jews. Let's get up, Jew. What does a Jew look like? There's a Jew. Brunette with blue eyes. That's a Jew? Okay. 2 redheads. They're Jews. Orthodox. From Ireland. They're Jews. Do you want me to go on? They're Ethiopian Orthodox Jews. Some of the oldest Jews in the world. Also some of the oldest Christians in the world. Who was the first convert? An Ethiopian eunuch outside of the immediate Israelites. Is he a Jew? 2,500 years Jewish. You know? Here we go. Here's some more Jews. Israeli Defense Force Jews. There you go. They're Jews? This is how freaking whacked off his head that clown is. Whacked off his head. You know, when Scotland was Jewish, what a fascinating book. Here you go. Here's some more Ethiopian Orthodox Jews. They're more Karaite style, Old Testament stuff. So there you go. So what is a Jew? Nick Fuentes just told you that garbage, which they tried to put into court. And as British Jewish activist Paul Larson says, it's whatever it'll be. If they need to clap you, they'll call themselves a race if it suits. But then, oh no, we're not a race, we're an ethnicity. And we'll talk about that garbage. Then he goes into Talmud. Anyway, let's now go to Reverend Ted Pike. Now, why would he start lecturing everyone, as in Nick Fuentes, on Talmud? Why won't someone just get a bunch of experts in to talk about it? Namely, Michael Hoffman. How about him? Revisionisthistory.org, Judaism Discovered, with the Karaites, which he wrote with the Karaites, who only study the Tanakh or Old Testament, 5 books of Septuagint. Doesn't want to talk about that. I watch all of his stuff, particularly lately, and go over a lot of his stuff. These are Orthodox Jewish talking points. Straight out of it. There's, Judaism Discovered. I had that in court. The judges read it. Everyone read it. Freaked everyone out. Michael Hoffman's Revelation of the Method. Some good old stuff in there. Then I just noticed this come up in my feed, the Jewish Talmud's most alarming teaching. So yeah, they've got all their young Turks, their young punks that they're bringing in now, ready to fill us in. Ready to go. It's very kind of them. But they're not going to tell us the old guard, are they? Let's get this up, shall we? Let's get my UN document up. Let's go down to here. High Court synopsis, written in a maximum security jail. We're going to go to commentary on racial vilification, used as a racial group. This is fascinating stuff. This is Professor Shlomo Sand, 2008, The Invention of the Jewish People. A deeper exploration of the ways of life and communication in past Jewish communities. Now, just to add in, during the directions hearing, which we won it. Are Jews a racial group? Shouldn't even be on the legislation. Here's what happened. We were before Judge McCann, and gave all the information to John Bowger, and John Bowger said that Eddie did a very good job presenting it. Judge McCann, who happened to be an aficionado of history, we went through, we talked about all this stuff. I wish I'd taken a microphone, and I don't know if I did or not. I took them into most of them. Regardless, Judge McCann said towards the end, okay, I reserve my decision. We will reconvene in 2 hours, and I'll give my decision on whether Jews are a racial group. And this is a directions hearing before the trial and should be, just before he did that, John Bowger got up and we said, these expert witnesses they're bringing in, Professor Andrew Marcus, Jewish Civilization Studies, and Rabbi David Freilich, who appeared from the Israeli Supreme Court building via video link. These were their expert witnesses, and it was inadmissible opinion evidence. They couldn't bring them on. It's just their opinion of what a Jew is. Okay? You can't be an expert witness with an opinion, if you know what I mean. The opinion is, does Brendon O'Connell believe they're a racial group? That's the only thing the jury has to look at. Me, not them. That's not the issue. I know it's hard to understand, but that is the issue. It's inadmissible opinion evidence. They weren't there. That's just their opinion on what a Jew is, when there's a multitude of beliefs. So what was important was my belief, and I had a bunch of information, what I was going to do, and which they wouldn't let me present. And so with all this in mind, John turned to me and I said, leave it. He said, my God, I think we're going to win. Turned around to talk to me as McCann was doing something with his paperwork. And I said, no, we've got to go to trial. We've got to go to trial. I've got to present all this stuff. And John was a bit pissed. I was like, this is a big win, Brendon. So he never challenged, because the judge was letting him, saying, are we going to challenge the opinion evidence? That would have wrecked the trial right there, along with that, just that. All right. And they wouldn't have, that was a huge win. They would have been off all racial vilification legislation. But I said, no, we've got to get to trial. We've got to get all this stuff on the trial, on the record. So John did as I instructed and didn't say anything. And Judge McCann said, I'm going to reserve my decision. And he said, some very interesting things have been discussed here today. Some very interesting things. And he got up. And I thought, wow, he might be going to just lay them off anyway. But as he said in the thing, well, due to the fact you're going to have these expert witnesses, and I have no choice but to go ahead with the trial and let the jury decide at trial. So anyway, Professor Shlomo Sam, The Invention of the Jewish People. It's a great book. It was a bestseller. A deeper exploration of the ways of life and communication in past Jewish. And by the way, have you noticed the revisionist? Has anyone mentioned my name? No, of course not. Complete blackout. Work it out. That's freaking Frederick Tobin, that piece of shit. A deeper exploration. He absolutely worked with Asia. 100% he was an asset of Asia. A deeper exploration of the ways of life and communication in past Jewish communities might further expose a wicked little fact. That the further we move from religious norms and the more we focus our research on diverse daily practices, the more we discover that there never was a secular ethnographic common denominator between the Jewish believers in Asia, Africa, and Europe. World Jewry has always been a major religious culture. Though consisting of various elements, it was not a strange, wandering nation. This is by Chomsky, Perilous Power. The Russian Jews are a separate component. I think there are about 1 million of them now, and with very few exceptions, they're extremely hawkish and very much opposed to any of the social democratic policies. Actually, a lot of them aren't Jews. The rabbinate, which is very corrupt, is willing to accept them as Jews, mostly because they're blonde and blue-eyed, figuratively speaking. They don't look like Arabs. They look like Northern Europeans. The typical model of the Saba, an Israeli Jew born in Israel, is supposed to be a red-haired and strong, rather like a movie hero in the West. The Russian so-called Jews help with that. I think some of the estimates were that maybe half did not fit the criteria for being Jewish. And we go into the directions hearing. These are all transcript bits. And as we go down, again, this is always available, 100 megabyte file. It's a great file, easy to navigate. And we go into all the different stuff. This is from the work that John Bowger did. All this stuff. Professor Shlomo Sam, The Invention of the Jewish People. As he saw it, the reason for the great Jewish increase was mass conversion. This process was driven by a policy of proselytizing and dynamic religious propaganda, which achieved decisive results amid the weakening of the pagan worldview. In this, Rappaport joined a non-Jewish historiographic tradition that included the great scholars of ancient history, from Ernst Renan and Julius Wellhausen to Edward Meyer and Emil Schur, and asserted, to use the sharp words of Theodore Mommsen, that, quote, ancient Judaism was not exclusive at all. It was rather as keen to propagate itself as Christianity and Islam would be in the future. If the propagating the faith began in the late Persian period under the Husmans, it became the official policy. It was the Hasmoneans who truly produced a larger number of Jews and a great people. Professor Shlomo Sam. But though the whole world did not convert to Judaism, as a Jewish historian might have hoped, the large numbers of Gentiles who were drawn to Judaism and the full conversion of many of them added up to the presence of hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Jews around the southeastern Mediterranean. And it goes on. Anyway, and on and on and on and on and on. So these are the sorts of things. Look, without question, Adam Green, Nick Fuentes, they're Jews. I bet you when you look deep down, they're Jews. When you look into their family history, you don't have to be a Jew. Look, have you heard of Hebrew Catholics? You heard of them? I know the Bairstows, near the Bairstows down in Albany, great southern region. They changed their names: Steel, Stone, Diamond, Gold, Smith, Jones. The great Jewish tradition of changing your name. That's your slave name. They're their slave names. Then they have their Hebrew names, or usually Yiddish. These are the great tradition. So, I have absolutely no doubt that if we're going to look deep, you notice that these people are just so protected that Nick Fuentes just got away with what he got away with the cat boy bullshit. Oh, it was just trolling. Really? You notice they all talk about a theocracy. Do you remember when Milo Yiannopoulos, the old gay mafia, Milo Yiannopoulos went on Tim Pool and said, you got to go back to the Crown corporate, Commonwealth, and the Pope. Do you remember? He's mouthing the same theocratic bullshit. Does anyone truly think Jesus said, "Yeah, I come to free the slaves"? That's why America is so special in that Constitution, and that Constitution only. It says it doesn't matter. You think, the only reason Jews or Jewish power took over America was because what? It was an open society? That's the only reason? I don't know about you, but you know what? For at least 40 years, I'd say there's been a concerted effort to expose the last 40 years, particularly once we got dial-up. That's why I was, Bill Cooper and the Ezra Pounds and the Eustace Mullins, that's where I started on. The Reverend Ted Pice. On into Alex Jones. And when you listen to what they say, their stuff is very direct. It's very straight to the point. Good old, not Norman Dodd, but Norman Dodd's one. The Red Orchestra stuff, all the old lectures. What's his name? The special thing they have, the Senator Fulbright. What he said about it, talking about Duke University, Senator Fulbright talking about Israel. This is not new stuff. This has been around a very, very, very long time. Remember Sibel Edmonds, 2003, 22 years ago? Killed the messenger. Sibel Edmonds, the FBI translator, exposed to the Turkish neocon, all the usual people, sending all the stuff to Israel with good old Phil Giraldi, former CIA case officer. Man, this is not new. But none of those people are going to be mentioned by the new heroes, the new alt media, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. You seen them? When they talk, like, they've been onto this the whole time. That's what you'd think. They just casually walk into it. Tucker Carlson with a straight face, the CIA wannabe, the intern, with a straight face says, well, I woke up to Iraq and I apologized. I admitted I was wrong. And I'm thinking, when was that, 2006, 2010? Oh, I woke up in 2023. He said it with a straight face. I was watching documentaries of American soldiers in Iraq from 2005 saying the whole thing's bullshit, the whole war's bullshit, there are no weapons of mass destruction. It was the sound of war. Remember the Australian, George Geese, the reporter? And he did a thing on heavy metal. It was fucking awesome. It's an awesome documentary. I just got my digital capture card and they just bought in digital TV and I managed to get it. I've got it somewhere. I've lost so much stuff. I was an archive. I archived so much stuff. The sound of war. And he'd go around interviewing soldiers to do with their music. A lot of them were musicians. And it was amazing. Some of the voices were incredible. And all from hip hop to soul, to all sorts of stuff. And heavy metal, rap. George Giddy's The Sound of War. If you get a hold of it, it's worth watching. And yeah, the soldiers were saying, yeah, it's all bullshit. There's no weapons of mass destruction. The whole thing's a lie. But Tucker Carlson just woke up and he has the confidence that he can say it and get away with it and not be laughed at. Imagine. And this is the way you control. Now let's watch a bit of good. I know we're sitting here, I'm talking to the choir. I don't know what to do sometimes. Because people are like, yeah, but Brendon, because I did the same 2005, 6, 7. Yeah, but we're getting there. Why are you so hard? You don't understand. These are the delaying actions they are doing. Let's get up. My favorite. Where are you? Where are you? Hypernormalization section. It's 4 minutes. Here we are. Let's get this up. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. How's that looking? There we go. Let's start this.
Then a technologist emerged who went much further, and his ideas would become central to Putin's grip on power. He was called Vladislav Surkov.
4 minutes. Let's remember this. Always remember this. Theatrical actors.
Surkov came originally from the theatre world, and those who have studied his career say that what he did was take avant-garde ideas from the theatre and bring them into the heart of politics. Surkov's aim was not just to manipulate people, but to go deeper and play with and undermine their very perception of the world, so they are never sure what is really happening. Surkov turned Russian politics into a bewildering, constantly changing piece of theatre. He used Kremlin money to sponsor all kinds of groups, from mass anti-fascist youth organisations to the very opposite, neo-Nazi skinheads, and liberal human rights groups who then attacked the government. Surkov even backed whole political parties that were opposed to President Putin. But the key thing was that Surkov then let it be known that this was what he was doing, which meant that no one was sure what was real or what was fake in modern Russia. As one journalist put it, it's a strategy of power that keeps any opposition constantly confused, a ceaseless shape-shifting that is unstoppable because it is indefinable. Meanwhile, real power was elsewhere, hidden away behind the stage, exercised without anyone seeing it. And then, the same thing seemed to start happening in the West. By now, it was becoming ever more clear that the system had deep flaws. Every month, there were new revelations of most of the bank's involvement in global corruption, of massive tax avoidance by all the major corporations, of the secret surveillance of everyone's emails by the National Security Agency. Yet no one was prosecuted, except for a few people at the lowest levels.
Yeah, but
And behind it all,
NSA, no, Adam. They're all private freaking companies. Israel, Russia, City of London.
the massive inequality kept on growing. Yet the structure of power remained the same. Nothing ever changed, because nothing could be allowed to destabilize the system. But then, the shape-shifting began.
Thank you very much. So nice. So amazing. So amazing. What? That's okay. I love you more, okay?
The campaign that Donald Trump ran was unlike anything before in politics. Nothing was fixed. What he said, who he attacked, and how he attacked them was constantly changing and shifting. Trump attacked his Republican rivals as being all part of a broken and corrupt system, a politics where everyone could be bought, using words that could have come from the Occupy movement.
You've also donated to several Democratic candidates, Hillary Clinton included, Nancy Pelosi. You explained away those donations, saying you did that to get business-related favors. And you said recently, quote, "When you give, they do whatever the hell you want them to do."
You better believe it.
So what specifically did they do?
If I ask them, if I need them, most of the people on this stage I've given to, just so you understand, a lot of money. I will tell you that our system is broken.
The Liberals were outraged by Trump, but they expressed their anger in cyberspace, so it had no effect, because the algorithms made sure that they only spoke to people who already agreed with them.
And that applies to both sides. Both sides. First you polarize, you get two camps going, and then if you want to sit in the middle and maintain some autonomy and independent thought, it's an uncomfortable position. You're just going to get less coffee mug sales.
Instead, ironically, their waves of angry messages and tweets benefited the large corporations who ran the social media platforms. One online analyst put it simply: angry people click me. It meant that the radical fury that came like waves across the internet no longer had the power to change the world. Instead, it was becoming a fuel that was feeding the new systems of power and making them ever more powerful.
Thank you, Adam Curtis. Thanking you, Adam Curtis. Let's go down. Fuentes is also attacking Candace Owens and Tucker as being Russian assets. Now, that's interesting. Yeah. Look, I really rely on you to keep me up to date on this stuff. It's really important. I can't keep up with everything. I can't. So if you can keep, well, I'll do these. I can't do them every day. I mean, I could. It's not like I've got a busy schedule. Occasionally I do, but most days, no, I'm not busy. People often start, I know you're flat out. It's like, yeah, I'm looking at the ceiling right now. My bad. I spent a lot of time thinking, actually. A lot of time thinking. Anyway, really, as being Russian assets, how interesting. Let's see how this transpires. The cat boy yawn, yeah. Richard Spencer has been taking the cred for Nick going after Russia. Oh, okay, Richard Spencer, yeah. God, there's a name I almost forgot about. The old media clowns are on thin ice with the people who are aware. Yeah, look, yeah, I agree, Antonio. There is definitely a change. It may not be immediate, obvious, but there's a change. People are going, yeah, you're right. You can just state normal things like, all these Hamas. Bibi, it's right there in Haaretz. The Israeli press spill everything, spill the whole thing. And yet, do you know how many years I've been going on about the fact that the Hamas leadership are sitting next to the largest US-UK base in the Middle East? And you just think, how Hezbollah's got billions of dollars flowing around, but everyone's confused. Where does it come from? But whenever Israel wants to blow them up, it's like, bomb. They know where everything is. Look, bomb, bomb, bomb. There you go. Goodbye. That was the end of the leadership. Well, of course they know where they all are, because Hezbollah is an Israeli City of London MI6 operation, or elements of MI6. That's why. Yeah, Bannon always gives the game away on MI6. He says, you guys are dialed into the Middle East. Of course they are. They help set them up with the Wahhabists out of Saudi Arabia. They fund the madrasas. They identify the talent, all the way from Bangladesh to Malaysia to Pakistan. I mean, they're spending $8 billion a year to the freaking Pakistan, where all the Taliban train, who then go across the border and kill American troops. Trump comes along and says, if you kill one more American troop, I'm going to take you out, even in Pakistan. Not a single American troop was killed in action. Not one. That was the end. Can't we think for ourselves? What's going on here? That's why I'm telling you, I'm so confident what I've told you is correct. It's correct. He's been told to clean up his Islamic terror network and a whole new system's going in. And they've basically said, you get rid of them all. We don't care how many you kill, but it'll be your blood, Jewish blood, or pretend Russian Jewish blood. You do the killing. And we're just going to sit back. When it's all done, we'll stick our base in, because they can't just go in and do over these people, strip them of their assets, expose all their bank accounts, their Grand Cayman accounts and all those. They can't do it because they're so freaking filthy themselves. That's the problem. So it's fascinating that Candace Owens comes out with that stuff. It's got me intrigued, and my intuition is super strong. Like I'll pick up on something and it'll just nag at me. Alex Jones looks like John Wayne Gacy, yeah. In your opinion, to what degree is occult stuff relevant in this? Well, I don't really bother considering it. Look, it's a distraction. It's like the Hasidim. They're noticeable, they wear a silly uniform, and you can pick on them easy enough. The people who are after read Carl Jung, I keep saying this, these are intellectuals. They don't go to any Thule societies. They don't go to the Illuminati. They might engage in the odd sex orgy. They think it's a joke. They don't get into that. Look, they don't need to cast spells and go down to the lodge or join a white witch coven or a naughty witch coven. Kissinger just sends the word, go and kill them. I don't like them. Kill these people. When I have real power, real physical power, I don't need to cast spells. just gets people to do this. This is where you're really wrong if you're really into this occult stuff. People at the top, they're all Jungians, mate. These are intellectual, scientific rationalists. Hitler, he went to one Thule society meeting. He thought it was all bullshit. He used to hammer Himmler, who was the big one into the occult stuff. And he was into Japanese culture. He was into the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu stuff. Big time Himmler. Himmler was growing all these herbs and spices at the killer concentration camp. Hitler used to laugh at him. Hitler said in Hitler's Table Talk by Hugh Trevor Roper, and they always say, oh, it's made up. There's no way Hitler's Table Talk was fake. It's exactly as you would expect, the talk. It's too good. If it was fake, why wouldn't British intelligence put in, Mein Führer, the Jews are screaming in the gas chambers, the children are dying, ha ha ha, Hitler, oh, this is wonderful news. There's nothing. You'd vote for him. Go and read Hugh Trevor Roper's Hitler's Table Talk. That is 100% real. 100% real. None of that stuff's in there. And then you hear all the accounts when Hitler wasn't off his head on crystal meth, literally IV crystal methamphetamine. That's what he was being injected by Dr. Morell. His Jewish doctor, Kennedy's Jewish doctor injecting him with crystal meth, for God's sake. My God, it was in the newspapers. And they're all screwing everything that moved. And then Hitler's ranting and sweating like his eyes are wide because he's off his head on meth. And when he wasn't off his head, he was normal, fatherly, respectful, loved by his staff, adored as a gentleman. Completely different. Hitler's adjutant, one of his main personal assistants, the male, Waffen SS. He married an English girl, and he said it was 1937, 36, 37. And he was so in love, he married her without permission, and he thought, oh, my God, I'm in such shit. And he goes into great detail. He went, Mein Führer, I have something to confess. And he goes, what is it? And he said, I've married my English girlfriend. I know I needed permission, but I married her in Hamburg last week. And he said Hitler's eyes lit up, and he went, oh, a wonderful English girl. The world needs an England. That's a quote. The world needs an England. And he loved England, complete Anglophile. You bet he was. Tavistock Doctrine. British Israelism. Alexander's Bill Hicks. No, but they definitely look very similar. It's true. But when you look at his nose, no, it's not. Because even I went, man, they do look alike. That is freaky. They do look alike. It's not. You are working. Yeah, I guess, in a sense. I've got a problem. It's my moon Virgo. I have a problem with, I've got to suffer for everything. You've got to suffer. You've got to sweat. You've got to get the shovel out. You've got to come home exhausted. Then you've done a hard day's work. I know. I got to stop that. But anyway, Pirates of Silicon Valley. Yeah, it's a great video. One of my favorite. Peyton novels like Einstein. Yeah, they're in everything. Hodge Twins, Jesus, that's a blast from the past. No, that's still there. They're doing well. Oh, I mean, what else are they saying recently? They just had General Keane on. He just went and had a meeting with Bibi and said, oh, Bibi loved Charlie. Bibi just loves Donald Trump. Oh, Trump hates Bibi. That's pretty much common known I've heard through 15 different sources that they just fucking hate each other. Hate each other. I'm telling you now, it's going to come out. Sarah Netanyahu, Milikowski is a U.S. intelligence asset. Red Ice Alan Green, like Congress, Senate trip to Israel. Anyone? Yeah. Remember Adam Green went to Israel and then he tore it all down, and Matthew North gave us all the original footage. I've still got it all somewhere. I'll find it. And then Matthew North ends up dead. Brandon Tatum interviewing BB. I didn't know that. Two brothers are literally retarded. Yeah, but, they're doing their thing. They're all actors, all of them. Nick isn't gay. Candace is a Masonic Catholic. I'm a carnivorous vegan. As a black man, we don't support the Hodgkins, but we did get targeted, yeah. I mean, I'm going to go into this. I want to do a really good one. I've got quite a few scripts on the go. Eventually, I've got to actually finish one. I've got to finish the other one. I've done it. I just got to edit it. I'm going to finish it tomorrow. But, when you look at that Frances Stoner Saunders and the Cultural Cold War, and she goes into all this CIA Wall Street operation, and they're all Jews, by the way, all the top people are freaking Jews, funding all this stuff, and they're funding the conferences, and they're funding the magazines, and they're funding movies, and they're funding left, and they're funding the right wing. You begin to see how this just translates into Shadowgate, Berge, Millie Weaver, and so on, and all these now private companies. I met Adam Grant at the 9/11 Film Festival in Berkeley. I told him he looks like some of my Jewish friends. Nice guy. He hates on Abraham. Yeah, hates Christians, by the way. Yeah, hates Christians. I had to step away for a minute, but when Owen shrouded left info was Alex Jones was laughing about the possibility of having Nick Fuentes host a show. He probably will. I mean, that even seems staged. I think Owen Schroyer just got out. He saw the writing on the wall and went, I'm getting out of here, because he scared himself. Look, they're all fucking cowards. Look, you know, if I have to tell someone, look, when you're a multi-millionaire, I'll tell you what a real dissident looks like. You're looking at him. All right, you look at it. It's hell. It's been fucking hell. But they have come and offered me to come into the fold. When you are getting offered from military intelligence, Australian military intelligence, right in there with Juicy HQ, with Tony fucking Abbott, Jesuit priest in training, who's hanging with the royal fucking family, they're very close friends. That's who I was invited out with. They don't just do that for anyone. Because Colonel James McMahon saw me stand up to all these pieces of shit in the jail. I never opened my mouth, and I said, "Oh, kill that motherfucker. You move him." He loved me, James McMahon. And when the prison officers were messing with my stuff, and I went off at the prison officers and said, "I'll fucking kill you, bastard," and no one would touch me. You do that in a minimum security jail, you threaten the officers, you're done, man. You're gone. Boom! There's a whole team will come down and grab you and you're straight back to maximum. They just put their heads down and walked off. Next morning, there's a sudden random appearance of the Commissioner of Corrective Services, Colonel James McMahon, SAS retired, and he walked by me, he looked me in the eye, and he went and laughed and kept walking. He's a good man. They were really cleaning up corruption and doing a lot of stuff in there to stop the prisoners getting beaten up and get rid of the drugs out of the jail. Him and Minister Joe Francis, whatever you may think of them, they're all Jesuits. So the Jesuits are protecting Brendon, the bad Irish ethnic Australian Catholic, for exposing the Jesuit conspiracy. I think you have to rethink that. But you know who they're all friends with? Benjamin Netanyahu. All of them. All of them. Work that one out. Oh, I'm going to do a script on that. Try and work it all out. Kerry Stokes bought the Rothschild Bible. Jews are Ethiopian. They came out of Egypt as a mixed multitude. Please, no. Did the Nazi classify Jews as a race? Yes, they did. Guys, can you hear well? My volume is at max and I can barely hear anything. I don't know that according to my look, everything is good. Everything is fine. I don't know. I think it might be something to do with you, but it could be one of those glitches. Shlomo Sand says, turn it up. Nick Fuentes dismissed the Rothschild angle. Did he really? I need to find all that stuff, so if you can send timestamps, please do. Yeah, maxed out. I'm going to stack wood. Amen. That is a very Zen thing to do. Yep, Nick is a rent boy, Spanish Jew, most likely. Once you start studying them, you'll start seeing the family links. You really will. It's not every time. You don't have to be. All right, but these are all Mr. O'Connell, rightful grit. I would be greatly concerned on how iconic personas in the public eye are utilised to diverge on changing shifts within the supply chain of manufacturing, such as the US slowly pulling out of the globalised economic system. Well, actually, they're not. They're heading back in. They're taking over China again, which is good, which in turn is a post-mercantile colonial trading route system. The US also just initiated a $195 billion investment plan into the UK. Can this perhaps be supporting the perspective of waspy Yanks' economically strong arm in the UK's? Yes, I would say so. Yes. Tucker, Eli, Atzmont fanboy. Who's your favourite of the frauds? Is that directed at me? Who's my favourite? Look, I got to admit, Alex Jones cracked me up. I started watching Alex Jones because I thought he was funny. You rip your guns! I just thought it was hilarious, man. I thought it was hilarious. And, you know, I don't know. I envy Tucker Carlson's presentation. I wish I could do it like that. Maybe one day. You can't legislate morality. Quite true. Okay, I have my skull candy blasting. Barely can hear it. Yeah, you're going to have to look into it. Look, I used to have all sorts of glitches like this. All sorts of glitches. But according to the equipment on OBS, it's running and it's perfectly up to the max level before it starts to distort. I don't know. But I can re-upload this via my recording because I'm also recording this. Shikskas, the one with the Rolex around his waist. Yeah, all Jews are Israelites, but not all Israelites are Jews. Quite true. I love the term Israelite. Look, part of the tradition is, of course, or part of biblical teaching is that the Israelites are lost and will be gathered up in the last days. So a lot of they would say, "Goy, like me," they'd consider me an Israelite, right? Because they're waiting for the gathering of all the lost tribes. See, I like the way Israelite transcends all religions. Does your heart burn for justice? You know what I mean? I love that. Does your heart burn for justice? You just can't stand it. You just wish you could switch off and go and do something else. You just can't stand it. That's an Israelite to me. And I like that aspect of that's how it works for me. Now, that's no standing. That's why Brendon won the case. Well, it didn't technically win, but it could have won, but I want to go to trial. Do you think having a RAG, retrieval augmented generation framework that includes the works of the greats, including yourself, could help spread awareness? Yeah, look, I've got to work. I'm not working, if you know what I mean. I don't like looking at the laptop. I got to be honest. I don't feel good when I get on the laptop. I also note that I have to use wireless all the time now, and it really affects my brain. Before, in my bunker, I had everything wired. Everything was wired. Even my phones, I had USB-C to local area network cable connections so I could avoid wireless, and it's messing with my head. But anyway, I'm pretty sure things are going to get better. Yeah, look, I mean, the bottom line is we're all sitting here online. If I was in America, I'd be getting groups of people together, living together even, and having a round table groups and organizing something, but I'm not, and I'm a tourist, and I'm not an American citizen, so... Benjamin Friedman's speech, 1961, yes, that's all the old stuff. Look, a part of the program is yes. I will definitely try to do that. Let's quickly get up what Lee's doing right now as we speak. These are his new, this is his new one he's handing out. He just tried to hand that to Matt Gaetz, like as we speak. As the West dies, Israel's future lies with rising Asia. Cyber is the real. Israeli domination of American cyberspace. There we go. It's all good. And what's the other one? So there's his printouts, and he is now in Arizona down at the Charlie Kirk event as we speak. So good stuff. Good stuff. A lot of overlap with neo-reactionaries. There are some interviews with Professor Israel Shak on YouTube. He totally dismisses and ridicules the entire Karzai side of Jewry. I mean, you know, Professor Israel Shahak exposed the whole thing, even the Yoda genome plant. He died of the complications of diabetes at the age of 72. What does that tell you about Israel? It's not some giant homogenous blob, I assure you. That's what you were going to Israel for asylum? You don't know Israel. You don't know Israel. Sabella's in Florida now, restarting a Patreon now after her sick husband, I think, passed. Okay, I'll try and get on that. Let me know where she is. I admired her a lot, and then she had a Turkish millionaire funding her, and that Turkish millionaire ended up getting shot dead on the street. And then she started pushing the Russia is good bullshit with Phil Giraldi and all the gang. All pushing the multipolar world order. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, Soundtrack of War, George Giddy's. That is an awesome documentary, man. That is a freaking awesome documentary. The Soundtrack to War. Megan Kelly being considered alt media is the biggest joke. Yeah, when I remember it was always the ultimate Fox News buffet. This is what I mean. I just sit there and like, oh, I'm so demoralized. Megan Kelly. Yeah, did you know in Israel this and AIPAC? Where were you 5 years ago? 3 years ago? 2 years ago, Megan Kelly? Your tongue was so far up their ass. All of you. All my friends are turning against me. Why are all your friends turning against you, Megan Kelly? Because they're all fucking Israeli firsters, that's why. You fuck. All of them. I'd shoot all of them. The audacity of these people for decades hung up their assholes. Yeah, oh my goodness, did you not hear? It's like freaking Gone with the Wind. The latest gossip. And they just swap. No explanation. Just they've got the truth. Watch us. Look over here. Like hypnotism. Look over here. No, look over there. Look over here. And we'll give you the limited hangout. Let's see. Telling you now, you know, I'm heavily into the astrology. You've got to study astrology. They study it like you wouldn't believe. Even if you don't believe it, they believe it. Study astrology. Do you remember when I said September is going to be a big month before all this happened? It's not that I'm a genius. It was well talked about in astrological circles. It's something big, Braun. September, with all these eclipse activity. There's one right now. It's a big one, which is why I think I'm feeling better. It's finally over. It's only going to get, the only way is up, baby. God. But Pluto, once Pluto is in Aquarius, there will be no limited hangouts. They're not going to survive. Candace, none of them are going to survive. They're going to get a lot of pressure. You watch. You watch. Protocol number 5, crap political casts until folks give up and discuss. Yeah, I mean, it works. I just feel, for God's sake. I mean, it would help if I had money in the bank. And I remember, I'm very socially isolated. I got a great view, but I don't talk to anyone. Literally, nobody. Nobody, except if it's online. I don't go out. I don't socialize. Nada, nothing, zero. It's not freaking healthy. The future is the occult. Not sure what that means. Well, if you're talking from a specific view of what the occult is, yeah. People want to experience the Godhead, and you can't experience the Godhead. You might get the grace of the Holy Spirit descend upon you, what's happened to me in 1992. That's the only reason I'm still here. Without that experience, I could never have put up with this. I had a treasure that I could grip onto. Something so beautiful you can't even imagine. And if you're talking about that, people want, you should go to church for massage, kinesiology, pressure points, psychotherapy, counseling, dream work, astrology. Your birth chart should be done. I shouldn't be going there to be told, be good, shut up, do as you're told, be polite, make sure you stick your willy in the correct hole and have a baby, and please donate. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't annoy the government. Don't question everything. Be passive, get your reward in the afterlife. There you go. So, the church is a servant of the state. Psychotherapy is a servant of the state. James Hillman, Michael Ventura. We've had 100 years of psychotherapy and the world's getting worse. The Soul's Code, In Search of Character and Calling. Read those books. Everyone's got a favorite book. Those are my two favorite, both by James Hillman. Another Jew. Another Jew. We meditate, pray. We are surrounded by subtle force. Yeah, that is true, and I do neglect it a lot, I've got to admit. When I do Psalms, when I put my head to the floor, I feel better. Then why wouldn't I do it? It's like you keep going back to McDonald's and you know it's crap, but you still eat it and you go, now I feel sick, which you knew would happen. It's like I love pain or something. They're afraid of losing power and probably death. Yes, fear of death. David Irving, yeah, he was a good historian. A few funny things about him, but yes, they hated him without question because he wrote fluent German, read, right, and they would talk to him. And he'd get original documents, and the historians just couldn't bear it. They'd just rewrite and quote each other's books. The King Ian stuff is compelling. What is the mid step being taken in the Jungian point of view? Sorry, understood, thank you. The King Ian stuff is compelling. What's that? What is the mid step being taken in the Jungian point of view? Oh, the misstep. It's a very intellectual approach to God. It's very Masonic. Very Masonic. I remember Jung wrote in his Memories, Dreams, Reflections. He went 3 times to visit the Vatican to go to Italy, and each time he went to buy a ticket, he fainted. Could never get there. He would see Sir Lawrence Vanderpost, who, by the way, was very close with Carl Jung. Sir Lawrence Vanderpost, who wrote The Seed and the Sower, which became Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. He said, why won't the priests come down with me so we can heal the soul, blah, blah, blah. Jung was very instrumental in the Vatican II, although not directly, but his work, that's when they just said, we're going to ascend the Virgin Mary to the same as the Holy Trinity, which is fucking ridiculous. The Virgin Mary stays on the earth, the feminine. Spirit is above, all right? You don't bring them up together. They're polar opposites until grace of the Holy Spirit, they're in union. But, they just decided the ascension of the Virgin Mary was the way it was, and thank you very much. That was all Jung stuff. It's all Masonic stuff. Would Jung agree with all this? Absolutely not. And Jung warned about, delving into the unconscious too deeply. It can be very, very dangerous, and it can be. But that's why we see New Age people who are always the biggest assholes. You find me a New Age type person, unless they have to be pretty evolved. They're always the biggest assholes. They never give generously because they're too busy finding themselves and they don't want to be disturbed. They don't want their little lives disturbed. They're horrible people. When you actually get down to brass tacks, they're fucking horrible people. And I always find the earthy Irish Catholic drunks, just give me them, please. Anything real and earthy. But it's a normal process to go through when you're on that journey. Like when I started seeing Bernard Tandy, who'd been to Palestine. He was the bodyguard for the regimental commander in Palestine, 1946-47, parachute regiment. And he was my therapist, looked and sounded exactly like Sir Alec Guinness. And I started seeing him doing dream work. He wasn't a technical Jungian analyst, but he knew a lot of that stuff. And I had a dream where a friend of mine who was a real party animal, great guy, Ian was his name, buzz cut with a what do you call it, a mullet, headbanging at AC/DC concerts, and he was always a real pisshead, but a good guy. Well, I dreamt I had my beautiful white shoes, and I went to put them on, and Ian came over and was sick in my shoes. And Brendon started laughing, and he said, yeah, because Ian represented that earthy partying side, and I was becoming all spiritual after my spiritual experience and doing my inner work bullshit. Well, it's not bullshit, but you start getting into dangerous territory. That's why the Zen masters say before enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water, and after enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. What kept me sane was doing door work. That's why I got a name as a bit fearless, because it kept me grounded. It's very dangerous when you get into that. If you have a particularly deep mystical experience and you start doing Jung stuff, it can be very dangerous, because you start getting all wafty, and you can end up in psychosis. You can end up all sorts of things. That's why I will not go near LSD or any mind-altering drugs, not even magic mushroom. I won't go near it, because I'm very close to the archetype. My Moon-Pluto conjunction in the 8th house, sextiling all my planets in the 10th house in Scorpio. I don't need drugs to go into the body. The golden page reminds you to trump his handle. Well, yeah, he's handled by someone. Always follow the money. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're not talking bankers, I'm not interested. You're just full of shit. You're just a little reactionary. You got to give the picture. It's all back into the banking and financial parasite. It's always back into that. But I believe we're going to see a rapid unfolding over the next 12 months. Before the end of this year, we're going to see a very rapid unfolding. Something very interesting is about to happen, I'm pretty sure. The Cultural Cold War's official premise makes zero sense to me without Brendon's, City of London explanation. Well, yeah, it's all that. But it's not the CIA or MI6 or the Mossad. It's their network is all through these institutions. You've got to understand that. That's why Mossad was warning about 9/11, but was also involved. It's why German and French intelligence were also involved in 9/11, and yet at the same time, they were also warning, because all these different groups in all these different areas are warning. Because that City of London slithering snake, and I mean, it's not just the City of London, it's a generalized description, it's a generic term. Hofjuden is the best, court Jews, and that intermarrying with the courts of Europe. That's the key to understand the whole history of the Kabbalists out of the East with the hidden knowledge. And then, Christians were banned from usury, so Jews did it. And then Jews were banned from owning property, so they were kind of forced into the dark arts, were kind of forced into organized crime. The Pirates of the Caribbean were Spanish and Portuguese Jews. And Queen Isabella booted them all. Now they're all here in Mexico and Central and South America. The Sicario. What's Sicario? It's Hebrew for assassin. Oh, they're all down here. Don't worry about that. So, that's why all the communists and the Fridas of the world are all down here in Mexico. The communist movement's so powerful, and the hatred for Christianity down here. They have devil stuff down here. There's demonology in this Mexico, big time, big time. Let's spread socialism to draw people away from full-on communism. Carving pumpkins. Yeah, I'd love it. It'd be great. Socialization is not healthy. Socialism is the doorway to communism. All that stuff. Well, they'd call Christ a communist, wouldn't they? To own nothing, own everything in common, live hand to mouth, share everything on your kibbutz. Does that sound familiar? Well, that's Jesus, baby. He'd be hung. What do you think? The Koch brothers and all the right-wing think tanks and the Cato Institute, and they're all looking for Bible quotes to justify not paying tax. Well, they would demand that Jesus be nailed to a cross if he turned up today, wouldn't they? I mean, how are you going to escape this? Just love is the fulfillment of the law. Can we just cooperate? 2 + 2 = 4. Let's just be reasonable people. But that's too simple, because how can the Pharisees of our day make themselves experts who you turn to? If ordinary people, couldn't look after their own health, make their own energy. It's all about control in this giant top-down techno-fascism, techno-oligarchy. Techno-oligarchy really is the best term. About this man Ashkenazi, I don't know. I just like his fruits. That's all that matters with me. But, everyone's related to an effing Jew somewhere. I know, but I just know when you start looking down the line with the Nick Fuenteses of the world and the Adams Greens, you can tell by their behavior what you're going to find, which is exactly why the official premise didn't make any sense. Can we say Ashkenazi as a race? No, there's no race. It doesn't exist. There is no Jewish race. There is no Jewish ethnicity. It is a religion. What you call race is the mitochondria in the major Ashkenazi from all the literal brother-sister sex and father-daughter sex that was going on and mother. They were weird. The shtetls were just dens of iniquity, and every time they tried to escape, the rabbis begged the king to give them control. And then they dress up as Christians and call them filthy Jews to push them out of the churches to make sure they didn't become Christians. Though, because of all the incest, the massive incest that went on in the East, that's why they're all trying to do Victoria's Secrets models and marry and mate with 6-foot models to try and improve their genetics. This is openly talked about in Jewish communities. I used to sit there and listen. So a lot of them are 5'4", 5'6", and that goes on in the Arab world as well, and even in Afghanistan, where there's a lot of cousin love and whatnot. That's why, watch Gone with the Wind. They're all marrying their cousins. What did Professor Tony, what's his face, say? Who ran the slave trade? Well, the Portuguese, Spanish Jews. You know where they all are? Here in Mexico. Now they run a different trade. The power elite created both capitalism and communism. Yeah, pretty much. Not that there's any capitalism in America. It's free markets for the poor, and socialism, taxpayer handouts for the rich in the high-tech sector. But I'm not against that. See, it's a balance. It's the inequality I can't say. And there's plenty for everyone. But you know what? When the problem is solved, the reaction and the solution comes, they probably will strip them of their assets and they will pay everyone the UBI. And the world will be a wonderful place under communitarian law. That's the great danger. So, it's going to be we don't want analysis paralysis, but it's going to be a pretty touch and go. Meditation and spiritual practice may benefit the individual, but they do not threaten the elite because they do not expose the lies behind the narratives. Yes, if you're meditating, I'm not going to deny, if you're an individual and you're meditating and finding comfort in this, well, I'm not going to knock you for that. But I found with people that meditate are so busy trying to feel good that they refuse to feel bad because they're in a shitty system. That's why I love James Hillman, where he said, we're all, talking about our mothers breastfeeding as our problems when we're breathing in glue from carpets and toxic pharmaceuticals and toxic food. Oh, I'm depressed because, there's a great scene out of we've had 100 years of psychotherapy and the world's getting worse. Well, Hillman talks with Michael Ventura, the LA editor of the LA Times, and they talk about how a woman was in this long-term therapy with her LA therapist for freaking 10 years. And she had to move to Denver, Colorado. And the guy's, but we're just making progress. And she said, well, look, I need to move for my job. So I'm going to move it. She got to the fresh air of Colorado, all the depression lifted, and she felt fantastic. What did Hillman say? Moving man as therapist. We're so caught up in this internal bullshit instead of going, look at this effing world. I'm in a job I hate, breathing in freaking car fumes with this poisonous toxic pharmaceuticals. Why can't I live in a beautiful UBI, work 4 hours a day, smart city with my beautiful Israeli surveillance and AI system? And that's what they're going to push on us. The aim is not to push anything away, but to say, I'll take the good aspects, but I won't have the bad. And it's this private corporatized. The corporation is the most evil. I want to smash the whole corporate system, transnational corporations, smash the banking and financials. Andrew Jackson said, I beat the banks. That's all I want to hear out of people's mouths. Let's go after the parasitic banking and financial class. You judge people on their individual guilt or not guilt, not on collectives. That's what America's about. That is the unique nature that is specifically laid out in the United States. It's specific. That's why they want to destroy it. They want you on the commons with everything in common. I struggle to understand why the US invests billions into allied nations under European aristocracy instead of passing legislation such as the burden the bar to siphon stolen IPs like how dual nationals in Congress do it by lobbying. Yeah, but the United States did steal a lot of stuff themselves recently and in the past. Roosevelt, and I'm dying to find that quote. I was going to use IR to try to find that quote about Roosevelt said, as part of Lend-Lease, you've got to give us 600 patents. They got 600 patents off the British, and the British have not forgotten. They're really pissed about it. So yeah. Anyway, we're at the end. Look at me messy hair. All right, ladies and gents, I hope that was at least some help. Let's read this in the end, shall we? I shall not be ashamed to confess that if I had the power as I have the will, I would select a score of efficient young men, intelligent, decent, devoted to our ideal, and burning with desire to help redeem Jews, and I would send them to the countries where Jews are absorbed in sinful self-satisfaction. The task of these young men would be to disguise themselves as non-Jews and plague these Jews with anti-Semitic slogans such as bloody Jew, Jews go to Palestine, and similar intimacies. I can vouch that the results in terms of considerable immigration to Israel from these countries would be 10,000 times larger than the results brought by thousands of emissaries who have been for decades preaching to deaf ears. July 11, 1952, Davar from the governing Labour Party. There we go. All right, ladies and gents, I hope there was some help. Let me get back to video editing. And we shall talk again soon. Painting swastikas on our own door. I mean, you understand how important this neo-Nazi movement, white nationalist movement is. The Elohim compounds, remember, in Idaho with Timothy McVeigh. They've got to keep the fear of God into European and American Jews. It's one of their central roles they have to do to maintain support for that little state. Oh, you better watch out. You may not like Bibi, but you might need Israel. The Goy are coming. They're coming. Look out. And that's been the game since time immemorial. God bless you all. Thanks, Megan. Good night. I did swear less. I'm going to stop. It's going to get better now. These free live streams are fun. Yes, they are. I actually enjoy them because I feel like I'm talking to someone. Now my hair's all messed like the nutty professor. But yeah, I'm off keto now and I still eat strictly. I don't have sugar and cheesecake, but yeah, feeling a lot better. I've worked out it's oxalate dumping. It's not the ketogenic per se, it's oxalate dumping. And since I've been having carrots and tomato and a whole range of things with some oxalates, I'm sleeping again. And it's like, oh, I'm feeling so much better. Oxalate dumping. Anyway, this has been a wild journey of health, and I'd like to discuss that because that is actually my interest, particularly with hormone replacement therapy and all the rest. It's been a long journey, that one. Okay, cheers all. Thanks, Kitty Mel, Caveman Cad. This was fun, and we'll see if we can't. I'll up the standards a bit, and yeah, I just have to deal with whatever I have to deal with, and just not be so mean. We'll talk again soon. God bless to all of you, whether you're a believer or non-believer. We're all in this together. That's for sure. Just want people a good heart. Juro barbecue. I got gin in the cupboard. I'm going to have a gin and tonic with ice. Got no bay leaves, but I might get a top hat and a monocle and pretend I'm invading Mexico to take over. All right, ladies and gents, we'll talk again soon.
F. Scott Fitzgerald, quote, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. This philosophy fitted on to my early adult life when I saw the improbable, the implausible, often the impossible, come true."
What is our common bond truly? Freedom. Freedom. Without freedom, you can't be a Christian no matter what denomination you belong to. You can't be a Buddhist. You can't own a donut shop. You can't drive from here to Oregon. You can't be an American because that's what it's all about, and it's the only thing that it's all about, nothing else. Nothing else. It's about freedom. Only freedom.